You know, I told you a little bit about the mission trip, and it's great to be home. You know, one of my biggest concerns is always the safety of the kids. And this year we were working on 2 houses next door to each other. One was a house, they put up some wood siding with pressure-treated wood a year ago, this group. And now that we came back, one of the group was fixing the seams, the nail holes, and then prepping it and priming it and painting it. And one of the things you learn is with going up with ladders, in Tennessee it's pretty mountainous. You gotta have somebody holding the ladder all the time. Kids are up on ladders up in the air, and it's easy to fall off, and trying to keep everybody safe. The other side, I was on the other side. Missy was over on that side most of the time. I was on the other side. They have built a pretty big porch on the side of this one trailer. It was 11.5 feet wide by 50 feet long, the deck was. And we built the framing, and then we put a roof on over this big porch and doing all that. And I stayed off of the roof this year. 2 years ago, I felt we were roofing a house, and then there were thunderstorms were coming, and we had open pieces of plywood. I remember I was rushing to get plywood in place and the tarp back over the roof before the rain started deluging in, and I went a little bit too fast, and I slipped off a joist and dropped through the roof. I caught myself on the joist in my arms, and the kids still tell me it was the strangest thing, Pastor, just seeing your head stick up over the roof. So this year, I was watching over in the window, helping the kids' roof, but I only went up the ladder and I popped my head up through the roof and said, okay, we gotta nail these and put the boards this way and doing all that. I stayed off of the roof. So I was safe, but I tried to make sure the kids were safe. And it's the kids learning how to use a power saw and cut everything is a big thing. A couple of kids didn't know how to use a hammer, actually, pulling nails. They grabbed the claw, they grabbed the nail, and they were trying to pull it like this, And then you have to teach them, you grab the claw and then you twist sideways, you get the torque of the claw, use the pressure of doing all that. But everybody was safe and we had a great week. We did have 2 medical situations. One was with Peace. And Peace, I remember I was in the shower, and I came out of the shower, and all of a sudden Foster comes running into the bathroom and said, Pastor, Peace is stuck. Where? He's stuck in the bench. In the bench. And I quickly showered, toweling off, ran back with me. Foster opened the soap dispenser and took out the big dispenser of soap, and we went back. And Peace was drawing on one of the benches on the porch while the guys were playing guitar, and his pencil slipped down. There was a gap maybe this wide. And sometimes Peace put his arm through the slat to pick up his pencil. He got hold of his pencil, but you know what, his arm, it would not come out. And I think they had 3 or 4 guys pulling on him to get you out, and he couldn't get it out. And then finally Foster used his brains and said he got soap, and they soaked up Peace's arm. It was thick, covered in soap, and then they pulled on him and they got his arm out of there. And there was a shout of 25 people cheering when his arm got out of the bench. And I told Peace, I'm gonna have to call the fire department, we're gonna have to get the jaws of life to get you out of there. But we did get him out, so that was one medical catastrophe averted. The other was a medical catastrophe that never really even happened. And it happened this way. All of a sudden, June Wayne Harmon, Verizon was the only phone carrier that worked really well there. So the kids would always borrow my phone to call home. And June Wayne came to me and said, Pastor Dave, I got to call my mom. She got my phone, disappeared. I thought nothing of it. But what the prank was, they ended up, Bradley was you the mastermind of this? Maybe? Okay, you won't confess to it. But if you know Bradley, since January, he ripped a tendon in his foot. So he's either been in a boot or a cast or on crutches for 5 of the 6 months of the year so far this year. He had a cadaver tendon put in his foot to fix everything up. But I don't know the order. June Way on her phone, Christian O'Halloran on his phone, and Wade Brodno on his phone all texted Terry within a 5-minute period that Bradley broke his ankle. And then Bradley on my phone texted that we're going to the hospital. I'll call you when we get there. And Terry sees this on my phone coming through that, you know what, we're on the way to the hospital.
Oh my gosh.
And then who finally, did you confess to it, Bradley? You confessed? I got my phone back about half an hour later and I found out about it. And Terry texted me, I can kill him. I didn't, you know, we brought him back safe and sound, so, and he's still breathing back there and he's talking. And you know what, when I heard about the prank, I said, oh, that's brilliant, but vicious. Brilliant, but vicious. And you know what, thinking about all that, you know, that sometimes, you know, parents worry about kids and their safety. I don't know, Avery had her phone cover smashed, the glass smashed. That worried me because we were in bandages for a little while and then that recovered. But overall, everybody came out. Well, it was a great week. And you know, it's interesting, as I was working on my sermon, I went away a little while for Friday afternoon and tried to work on my sermon with the scripture readings from this week. And the one that really stuck out is the passage from Luke chapter 10, where Jesus talks and goes to the house of Mary and Martha. And it's Martha's house. Martha's in charge. And all of a sudden, what happens? Jesus and his disciples descend on the house in the evening, and they're there for dinner. And can you imagine the situation? Could you, at your house, be ready if 13 people showed up unannounced for dinner? Could you handle it? We don't keep a lot of stuff in our freezer. I know some people. I know growing up, Grandma Nelson, you know what? I remember showing up bringing about 8 friends at her house, and she'd feed us for days. She always had food no matter what. She could come up with anything to do, whatever. But 13 people suddenly show up for dinner, and you know what? Martha's freaking out. She's running around. She's trying to get everything ready. She's worried and she's trying to get everything ready. And do you know what happens? She looks at her sister Mary. Is she helping her in the kitchen get everything ready? No, what's Mary doing? She's sitting at the feet of Jesus, listening to Jesus, and doing nothing about dinner. And Martha comes up to Jesus and said, Jesus, look at me. Look at how hard I'm working, and look at my sister, my no-good sister. What is she? She's lazy. She's doing nothing. Don't you care about me? Tell her to get to work and tell her to help me. And you know what? Martha's locked up in her own perspective, in her own world, and all she can see is the job that she has before her, and it's overwhelming. It's just she needs help. And you know what her answer was? Blame somebody else for what she has to do. Do you know, I like how Jesus answers her, and he says her name twice. Martha, Martha. You know, sometimes with kids, do you ever use their middle name? You know, my kids' names are Luke, David, or Grace Elizabeth. When you use your kid's middle name, what does it mean? Then you pay attention. This is serious now, right? You know, whenever you use somebody's name or their middle name, it means this is important, you know? Because if you just say their name, sometimes they're half paying attention. But when you say their name, Grace Elizabeth, it means this is important. They didn't have middle names in those days. But so Jesus just said, Martha, Martha. You're all worried about a lot of things. Mary has chosen the better thing, and it's not going to be taken away from her. That's important. And you know what? In many ways, you know, life is busy. We get caught up in so many things going on. Your mind is wandering. And you know, there's so many things. Do you know the other thing I found out this week? Do you know what's going on around the country? Pokemon Go. Are you familiar with this? It was interesting. Screams. I was with the kids going the bus down the street. We went through downtown Copper Hill, and all of a sudden I heard screams going on the bus. There's a Pikachu! There's a Pikachu here! Do you know what a Pikachu is? It's sort of like a gold star, a gold medal in the whole Pokemon Go game. It's even better than a Pokemon. There was a Pikachu. And it was the kids shouting, "There's a Pikachu!" And well, what is a Pikachu? But you know what? It's the biggest downloaded video game in the history of the world right now going on. And even coming back, I know when we were coming back all night day on the bus, I took a nap in the bus instead of going to McDonald's, and I heard there was Pokemons all over that McDonald's, Some of the kids came out and, excited about that. And that's sort of the world in which we live, no matter where you go now. And what I was reading, it was ironic, I was reading the paper yesterday, coming back and talking about this Pokemon game, that people were literally texting and walking, trying to find Pokemons. 2 people walked over cliffs and were seriously hurt because they weren't paying attention to where they're going. They're just looking for a Pokemon. Claude Ware at the 6 o'clock service yesterday, some guy was trying to break into his barn because, you know why? There was a Pokemon in there. Irregardless of the donkeys and the dogs running around the fenced-in yard, he said, "I've got to get in your garage, there's a Pokemon." And then Claude told him, "Well, unless you want to get past that dog, you're not getting in that garage." And you know what? Sometimes life, with busy things, with real things, and sometimes with imaginary things, you get so preoccupied, so consumed, you forget to stop, to turn everything off, and sit at the feet of Jesus. Mary in this moment chose the best thing that was needed, and she needed something. She didn't care about dinner, and you know what? There are more important things than food. She just had the opportunity to sit at Jesus' feet and learn incredible things. And that's one thing that we all do in church. Church is one moment when we, my cell phone, it's usually on and it rings a lot. Beeps go off all the time, but there's one time, 1 hour of the week, the cell phone's off. And it's focusing upon Jesus and listening to Him. And that's needed. This passage, the one thing that it reminds us is don't get caught up and consumed with all the things going on in the world so much. There are times you just need to shut everything off. And it's nice to have a moment, there's no TV. My cell phone worked, but a lot of the kids, their cell phones didn't even work in the camp. And I think that's a good thing sometimes, that? You don't really hear about what happened in France. And, that's a good thing, not knowing about it for a little while or all the things and the problems in the world. Because when you sit at the feet of Jesus, you hear amazing things. I think Abraham and Sarah, in that Old Testament reading, they were so consumed with their busy daily life, when they heard this incredible thing that God was going to do and give them a son in their old age, they said, that's not going to happen. But you know what? With God, all things are possible. When you sit at the feet of Jesus, you realize that, Jesus can do anything. When He came to a grave, He said, "Lazarus, come out of the grave." When He met a man who was born blind and had never seen a thing, He opened his eyes. When He met sinners, even when He met the Apostle Paul, the worst of all sinners, He forgave them. You learn the amazing measure of God's grace. It's bigger than we can fathom, bigger than we can understand. You learn the meaning of life and what we're called to be as the people of God, now and always. We all need times to shut everything off and focus upon God. One of my favorite things about this camp and this group that we go with, Team Effort, is what they end every day with chapel at 8:30. Do you know what? You're busy all day, you're doing all sorts of things, but at 8:30 at night, everybody goes to chapel. And it's a time of shutting everything off and saying, you know what? We focus upon God. We listen to Him. because he's the one who has all the answers. He does miraculous things. And he makes life and every part of life important. Gives it meaning and purpose. And he's always there. And you don't get reminded about that by just being busy. You need to stop and listen to Jesus and talk to him. Do you know that, like I said in the children's sermon, my favorite part of the week, I don't know, the girls didn't get a part of this, but it was interesting how, that Wednesday night, the other pastor he was pretty much a stickler for, he would, turn the lights out and say, all right, you guys, it's bedtime. But it was interesting that night, he even came out on the porch and stayed up with us well past midnight, because you know what? The kids were really, in a very locked and engrossed situation as they talked about it. And it started off with Ben Pickard, we got him back for his 4 o'clock shift at Cappy's. That's why we left so early. He had to work at 4 o'clock, so we said, all right, Ben, we're going to get you back to work at 4 o'clock last night. I hope he made it. JP, was he tired? He was beat, so, and then I know Katie Bach said she slept. She went to bed when she got home. They had to wake her at 8 o'clock this morning. She slept 16 straight hours. Avery, did you sleep last night? Gianna, were you tired? All right. And June Wayne Bradley back there. You two are still in trouble, so I don't know, so. Watch your back. You may get it this week, right, Pranks are good, but get ready for revenge, that may happen to you too. But what God wants us to do in life, has busy and great moments, but establishing your routine, somewhere, somehow, a time every day when you shut down, you turn the phone off, and you sit at the feet of Jesus. It makes the rest of your life better. You see God's presence, you feel God's presence wherever you are. And you get to share the wonders of all that God has given you with each other, with the world, but even more yourself.